Well, hello, this is John Watts. I appreciate you watching this video. Yesterday we did a video kind of covering the 3 stages of foreclosure in Alabama. So there's before the foreclosure, there's the actual foreclosure itself, and then there's after the foreclosure. And what I want to do in the next 3 videos is take each one of those stages individually and talk about them. So let's talk about the first one, before the foreclosure. So let me describe to you the steps that must happen. And then what does it mean if the mortgage company does not do one of those steps? And then finally, what can you do if you're in this before stage of the foreclosure? So first of all, what are the steps? Well, the first step is the mortgage company believes, whether true or not, that you have defaulted on the loan. So what does default mean? Well, if you read in your note, and the note is the debt, the mortgage is the thing that ties the debt to the dirt, the debt to your property. Okay, but typically in your note, it'll say your payment's due on the first of the month. If it's not received in the first of the month, you are in default. Okay, so some people say, oh no, you're not in default unless you're 90 days late or 120. No, read the contract. 1 day late. Now you may have a grace period before they start tacking on late fees, but you're still in default. So the point is, if you do anything that the contract says not to do, or if you refuse to do something that you're obligated to do, then the mortgage company will say that you're in default. It could be you're not keeping up homeowners insurance, paying taxes, you're trying to sell the property without letting them know, in terms of not paying them off, whatever it might be. Okay, but the classic thing is you're behind on your mortgage. So after a period of time, maybe 30 days is the quickest we normally see this, but technically it could be in 10 days or 20 days. But usually between 30 days and maybe 90 days, you will get the first step, which is the letter. The letter says, you're in default. Here's how you're in default. Here's what you need to do to fix, or they'll call it cure the default. And here's your deadline. And here's what will happen if you don't do it. So this is known as a number of different types of, it has a number of different descriptions. So we generally call this the default notice. It may be called the notice of intent to accelerate. We'll get to acceleration in a minute. It may be called the breach letter, like you breached the contract, you broke the contract. There's all different ways to describe it, but the commonality is that it'll say, here's your default. Here's what you need to do to fix it. You have 30 days from the date of this letter or some other date, but usually at least 30 days to fix it. And it'll be a specific date that they give you to fix it. And if you don't fix it, then we may accelerate the loan, which means it's all due, and we may start foreclosure. And then the letter will also tell you that you have the right to reinstate the loan even after they accelerate it. And you have the right to bring a court action to have a judge look at this and say, all right, were you really in default? Did they really properly accelerate it? Is the foreclosure proper? So that's what that letter has to tell you. Now, this all comes from, for most people, paragraph 22 of your mortgage. Yours may be 21, maybe 19, but it's somewhere in there, and typically it'll be in all bold, and it'll say, here's what the mortgage company can do if you're in default. Okay. And you can go to our website, alabamaconsumer.com. We have all sorts of articles where we quote this language so you can see it. But this will be in your mortgage. And so that's the very first step. After they think that you're in default, they send you the default letter, whatever they call it. Then if you don't fix it or cure it within that 30 days, the next letter is the acceleration letter. So my mortgage is $200,000, paid over 30 years. I get the acceleration letter. It says, boom, it's all due right now. No more 30 years, 200,000 or whatever the amount is, all due right now. And typically it's in the same letter. They'll say, and we've scheduled a foreclosure. Now again, this is Alabama. We're non-judicial state. This is different than Florida where they have to sue you to foreclose. Here, the mortgage company handles all this. They say, so we're accelerating it and we've set a foreclosure date 30, 45 days in the future. Well, what's the next step? Well, the next step is they start advertising it. It has to be advertised 3 weeks in the newspaper. Well, which newspaper? A newspaper in your county. It gives the date of the sale. And then as you go up to the date of the sale, then they would do the actual foreclosure. So that'll be the next video, okay, the actual foreclosure. So what we've been talking about in this video is not foreclosure, it's not pre-foreclosure, it's not foreclosure proceedings. These are things that companies call it, but in Alabama, the actual foreclosure is only when the guy's standing there doing the auction up until the foreclosure deed is delivered, okay? What we've been talking about is not foreclosure. This is the before the foreclosure stage. So that's the first thing. We want to talk about just all these steps, okay? Now, what happens if they mess one of these steps up? So they don't send you the default letter. They don't send you the acceleration letter. They don't advertise it for 3 weeks. They advertise it in the wrong county. They schedule the foreclosure for the wrong county. What if you're actually not late? Okay, you haven't defaulted on your loan. I mean, we had one case years ago where my client sent, I think it was like $10,000 to a big major mortgage company. And they admit they got it finally after they denied getting it. But then they say, well, we don't know where it is. It's like, well, you deposited it. Yeah, but it's lost in our computer system. We have so many accounts, we can't find the money. So you're in default. No, it doesn't work that way. So if they mess up any of these steps, then they can't proceed. So if you're not in default, they can't send you the default letter. Everything after that would be meaningless. If you are in default, but they send you the wrong default letter, they don't tell you you can bring a court action. They don't tell you you can reinstate. They don't give you a date certain to pay that or to cure that default. Then that letter's no good. Well, if that letter's no good, then the thing that follows it, the acceleration letter, is no good. And then the advertisement's no good. And then the actual foreclosure's no good. Well, what if you're truly in default, they sent you the right default letter, sent you the right acceleration letter, but they mess up the advertising? Well, then it's no good. They can't proceed. So I've been sort of showing you as a timeline. You could think of it this way. The foundation is you have to be in default. Then they have to send you the proper default letter. If any of that's missing, you can't build any further, can't build any higher. Well, then the acceleration letter, if that's no good, they can't build anything else. So if you can show any of these steps are wrong, you pull those out, the whole thing falls down. The foreclosure's no good. So that's why it's really important to understand, looking at your mortgage, make sure you understand exactly what your mortgage says and then what Alabama law says to know, are they following these steps correctly? So we've talked about what are these steps in this before the foreclosure stage. Talk about what happens if they mess up. It means the foreclosure is no good. Well, what do you do if you're in this stage or this section before the foreclosure? Well, you want to do everything you can to save your home, assuming you want to save your home. Sometimes people say, I don't care. I want it to go back to the bank. Okay, that's fine. But if you want to save your home, then you ask for what's called loss mitigation. Loss mitigation is anything to prevent a foreclosure. It could be a loan modification, it could be a forbearance. So I'm recording this now. Today's April the 8th, I think. So we're in the middle of this, COVID-19, coronavirus, and there are some forbearance programs out there for a lot of people who have a mortgage. So that just means you don't have to make your payments. They just get pushed down the line, but then eventually you have to catch all those payments up. So that's an option. So loan modification, where they change the whole terms, they forbear, maybe they give you a deferment. I mean, all different things they can do to try and stop a foreclosure. Okay, that's what loss mitigation means. Mitigation is like to stop the bleeding. So how do we prevent the loss of your home? Well, if ultimately that doesn't work, but they have done something wrong, or at least there's a question about it, remember what I said about that default letter, said you have the right to go to court to have a judge look at this. If you don't do that, no judge ever looks at your foreclosure before the foreclosure actually happens. No judge is there at the foreclosure cell. They're not involved at all. It would only be after the foreclosure that maybe a judge looks at this. But you have the right to, as you're coming up to that foreclosure, to bring a lawsuit against your mortgage company and say, hey, I don't think I'm in default. I think you've made some errors. I think you've made some mistakes. I think there's some defect that prevents the foreclosure from happening. So you could do that. You could file bankruptcy. If you file bankruptcy, assuming you qualify, and we talked about this in a video yesterday, as soon as you file that bankruptcy, there's something called the automatic stay. That just freezes everything, including foreclosures. Now, there's a heavy price to be paid. Filing bankruptcy, I think usually it's a terrible idea, but it can be a wonderful idea in the right circumstance. So the whole point of this video is so that you understand this before stage of the foreclosure. What are all the steps that have to happen? What happens if they mess up any of those steps? And then what can you do to stop it? So we have a ton of other videos talking about how do you get loss mitigation. We'll talk about that again. But just understand, if you're in that before stage, you still have time. But every day that goes by makes it a little bit harder. And there are some hard deadlines under the law. If you get too close to a foreclosure, you lose certain of your rights. So if you think that you're in default, if the mortgage company has told you you're in default, you really need to hustle and either figure this out on your own, and you can do research, you can watch videos, you can read case law, you can look at your mortgage. That's a great starting point. And certainly talk to your mortgage company and say, I want every possible option I want to be considered for it. Or you can go to a lawyer like me, and we can help you with it. The point is, you've got to take some action. Sometimes people are in a situation where they say, I just don't have any money to hire somebody to help me. Hey, I understand. Do it yourself. Okay. Same thing if you go, I really need to work on my car, but I don't have money for the mechanic, but I can fix it myself. Great, do that. Other times we say, I don't have time to figure this out, or I don't want to figure it out. I want somebody else to help me. I'll tell you this. My background is in accounting, and I help people with IRS problems, resolve things with the IRS. I can do my own taxes. Okay, I can do other people's taxes. I don't have any desire to do taxes. Okay, so I gladly pay my CPA to do my taxes because I don't want to do it. Okay, probably couldn't fix my own car. Okay, maybe a tiny little bit I could. But even if I could, I might say, I don't want to fix my car. I'd rather take it to the dealership or to this mechanic that I trust. Point is, you have to figure out what you want to do. It doesn't matter whether you do it on your own. People are perfectly capable of doing that. Whether you hire somebody to help you, you can find good people to help you. Point is, if you're in that before stage, you're leading up to the foreclosure, you've got to take some action. You've got to do something, or else you're just going to go right up to the actual foreclosure, which will be our next video. And then the video after that will be after the foreclosure. That's where you get the letter saying you got to get out of your house, where the sheriff shows up, sues you, where the sheriff shows up, says you've lost your lawsuit. Now I'm physically dragging you out of the house. Okay, so you want to catch it here at the before stage and never let it get to the foreclosure or to the after foreclosure. So hope that that's helpful to you. Thanks for watching this. If you want to get in touch with me, it's 205-879-2447. 879-2447. So area code 205. And it's alabamaconsumer.com. Okay, thanks for watching this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.